Well, hello and welcome to this special CEO conclave where we are going to talk about innovation and whether it's a viable business model for India. And to deliberate on this topic, I have an esteemed set of panelists who would join me in this discussion to find out what are the ways in this. May I request Dr. Maninder Hora, Global Head of Pharma Development and Manufacturing, Nectar Therapeutics, to join me. Can we have a round of applause for him, please? Welcome, sir. We have with us Mr. G.V. Prasad, Chairman, Dr. Reddy's, to add a lot of perspective from R&D and innovation that Indian companies are doing. We're joined by Sanjeev Navangul, MD, Janssen India. Rogerio Ribeiro, Senior Vice President, Emerging Markets in Asia Pacific of GSK, to give his views on how multinationals look at innovation in India. We have Dr. Krishna Ella, CMD Bharat Biotech, the man who's doing a lot of work in vaccine. And Dr. Praveen Tai, President and CEO of Osmotica Pharma USA. Can we have a round of applause? I'm feeling a little scared here. I have the doyens from multinational as well as the Indian side to talk about innovation. I am a novice, I am a journalist. I will restrict my comments and try and extract as much value as possible out of this discussion from this esteemed panel. But to begin this discussion on innovation, I would borrow from what GV said yesterday. Innovation is an overused term. Yes, it is. We don't know how we define it. Sometimes it could be solutions, or it could be new chemical entities, or it could just be a normal or a different way that we look at normal local solutions. To deliberate on how and what really defines innovation, can I start by asking Dr. Maninder Hora, is the definition of innovation getting restricted? Are we restricting ourselves when we talk about pharma innovation to talking about NCE development?
Yes, I think the definition of innovation is automatically assumed as patents and intellectual property. And I think that is one part of it. When you're talking about innovation, you're talking about innovation along the entire value chain, if you will. Innovation along, for example, regulatory pathways. In the US, for example, US FDA has breakthrough drug status, a fast track status. Those allow, and in Europe, you have conditional approvals. Those allow you to take your drug through the regulatory process in a very rapid way. So that's just an example. I can, I'll be speaking about other examples during this discourse.
Well, Mr. Prasad, he spoke about a different way to look at innovation. It doesn't necessarily mean patents, he says. But when we talk about India, are we looking at enough localized products? Are we really defining innovation as bringing solutions which maybe are cost-effective and are localized to the needs here?
I think, certainly Indian companies understand innovation. There is scientific innovation, which is what you're talking about. Patents, novel products, regulatory pathways, all of that is scientific innovation. There's also customer-focused innovation, which could be packaging innovation, which could be delivery innovation. It could be a business model innovation. So innovation can come in many, many shades. So to have this discussion focused, maybe we should, discuss some part of it. I don't think we can cover a generic innovation across the value chain. Mm-hmm. So if you can, have us focused on what you want us to talk about, it would be helpful.
Everyone says India has not been able to deliver an NCE till now, and we are not onto the innovation platform. What I'm trying to understand from my panelists here is that what is the borderline that will make India a country big in innovation? Or are we doing enough innovation, or are there other ways also in which we can look at innovation?
So the biggest price is in NCEs, right? That is where the largest amount of money is. But at the same time, it is the highest risk activity. It requires huge investment. And it's not true that India hasn't produced NCEs. There are several NCEs which have been licensed. There's one NCE which has been launched. So we are making significant progress there. Of course, it's small compared to the global portfolios, but we are making a very strong presence in innovation. Many of our companies are part of the value chain in innovation. Medicinal chemistry, I think India is being recognized as a great organization, I mean a great competitive advantage. There are a lot of large companies which do their chemistries here. There is other forms of innovation in drug delivery and all of that. So it is happening. I don't think you see it end to end in any one company, but innovation is happening in quite a large extent in Indian companies today.
Mr. Navangal, would you want to add here in terms of the kind of innovation we are seeing in India at this point in time, and do you think we are restricting ourselves somewhere?
So, no, I think what GV said is absolutely true, that any kind of innovation that leads us, I think at the heart of our industry is unmet medical need. What is it all about? It's about unmet medical need, and can more patients get treated, and can more patients get treated better. Anything that we can do which can innovate and ensure that we can improve treatment rates or reduce the gap of unmet medical need is an innovation. Unfortunately, we try and color innovation always, as I think everybody else talks about, is intellectual property. But there are several innovations that have happened in India which has improved treatment rates in the country. Yeah. And that's where we should focus on. We get carried away by some kind of definition of innovation, and then our debate shifts from what is actual need in the country. We should continue to focus innovation where we can improve treatment rates in this country.
Mr. Rogerio, in your experience of dealing in other emerging markets, a large number of them which are in some way similar and in many ways different than India, where would you stand this innovation model, and how do you look at it?
Actually, we're seeing this trend. Countries trying to develop the biotechnological sector. Countries like Korea, like Brazil, they're investing significantly in providing support to do that. But so far, no one has been successful. Actually, I think, from my perspective, India has a significantly better footprint to be the next innovator. And the question is that why it's not? Why? Clearly, I mean, there's been some NCEs, but why not more? Right? What is missing in the India? Because the footprint in terms of knowledge, in terms of people, in terms of pharmaceutical, very strong pharmaceutical platform. I mean, India should be ahead of all of the other countries. I think that will be interesting to debate here with the team, because it's certainly ahead of other markets in emerging markets.
Praveen, would you want to add your bit? You're also collaborating with a lot of Indian companies. What's your take here?
I think my definition of innovation is very different than probably most of the panelists. In my mind, innovation means anything which will benefit the user. Right? Let me give you an example. I think the fixed dose combinations, which India has developed quite significantly over the last 20 years, is, in my mind, quite innovative because it helps the end user, right? The problem is the industry has taken advantage of that FDCs, the fixed dose combinations, and instead of having more formulations which are helpful to the consumer, patients in this case, there are a lot of combinations now which are available which are harmful to the patients. So we have taken the innovation from being beneficial to the society to, basically a scenario where profit has come in the way of innovation and profit has come in the way of benefit. Let me give you a local example, Archana. Since I was involved with this, I used to be the chief scientific officer for Bausch & Lomb, and we had great collaboration with local LV Prasad Eye Institute. And the way the LV Prasad Eye Institute has done these satellite vision centers in the secondary villages, in the primary villages, so that the villagers are now testing the vision of each and every person in that village, in my mind, is innovation at its best, right? Because that innovation has now reached the end user which it would have not reached. I mean, those guys would not have come to the tertiary centers in Hyderabad to get their visions checked, right? So what we have to figure out is what kind of innovation can Indian industry and India manage? And we should focus on that rather than thinking about should we be developing NCEs? Should we be developing Me Too products? Should we be developing best medicinal chemists? I think what we have to figure out is what is best talent pool available for, and then focus our innovation towards that talent pool.
But are we doing that enough? I'll come to Krishna. You wanted to add some point?
I just wanted to react to a couple of points made by Rogerio and Praveen. Firstly, I think what's coming in the way is, Rogerio mentioned, I think the biggest obstacle that I see in developing novel therapeutics in India is the whole clinical trial regimen. It's not easy to get approvals, and the pathway is not very clear, and there's a lot of subjectivity involved in getting approvals. Even today, even to get a bio-study done, it's quite challenging. And in many cases where even for a generic product, we are doing our studies outside India. This is because of the delays, because of the lack of transparency in how decisions are taken. We are sometimes forced to do these studies outside. That is one big, if anything that we can do to change the trajectory of innovation is to enable clinical trials. And we can discuss this a little later. Praveen, your point about fixed dose innovation in that front, if you forget for the moment what the science behind a product is, but if you really look at the unmet need and look at the significance of that unmet need and find ways to address it, whether through combinations, whether repurposing drugs, or delivery or technology, there are ways in which you can meet that unmet need with a lower risk, without the risk of an NCE. The problem you're solving is not trivial, but the approach towards innovation is incremental in terms of the science, but the use is very significant. And this is what we've been working on, and it's showing some very good results.
Mm-hmm. And actually, I'd also like to counter one point that Praveen spoke about. I think when you said that what we can manage here in India, I'm actually offended. I'm born Indian, and I think that when the Hatch-Waxman Act in 1984 for generic drugs was passed in the U.S., that opened a pathway for Indian companies to show what they were made of. And boy, we did that.
Yes.
We actually did that, and we are a powerhouse, generic powerhouse. And now I think when I heard, everyone is talking about, incremental innovation, but no one is touching the white elephant in the room, the NCE. We said we don't want to touch the NCE, but I hear from both sides, we were talking about NCEs.
Yes.
So I think one of the things that is preventing us from doing that, is that we have to change our mindset. Our mindset, cultural mindset for generics is different from a mindset that you need for innovative drugs. If generics is a 100-meter sprint, my friends, innovative drugs are a marathon. There will be a lot of, you need endurance, resilience, persistence, all of those things. And there will be many, many failures along the road. You have to take them, and you have to pay for them. So we have to find a way to have that financial strength. And I'm sure, Dr. Reddy's and others can tell us how difficult it was when they broke into the generics market first. It wasn't easy, but they did it. And I think we can do it.
That's what Mr. Prasad had yesterday also mentioned, that innovation at one point in time meant doing those generics as well. Let me bring in Dr. Krishna here. He's worked a lot in the vaccine space. You also are in the process of launching your new vaccine. The kind of challenges that GV was talking about in terms of clinical trials, in terms of the policies getting hindrance, even if you have the intent, you're not getting going ahead. Have you faced similar challenges?
I mean, everybody is facing the same problems. So,
Krishna is well connected in Delhi.
So nothing new. So nothing new. But I want to take up innovation.
Does that help?
It doesn't help much. So our Prime Minister doesn't speak, so nothing works. So it doesn't matter. But I just want to take back a little the innovation. It's a sexy word now. Everybody talks, Finance Minister talks.
We have it written
President,
here,
everybody,
innovate and evolve.
Even BioAsia want to use that innovate word. So that doesn't matter. But what is important is the definition of innovation. To me, is very simple. Who creates innovation? It's individuals, not the company. Okay? I think that is the fundamentals we have to understand. The innovation created by the individuals, not by the company. The individual gets accumulated, the culture is created in the organization, and you create an innovation. Okay? So what is innovation? If you look at the individuals, what do you need for innovation? It's very simple. A knowledge, that means knowledge means a degree, a good skills, you know how to make a good recombinant protein, whatever it is, and good imagination. What is imagination? Simple example, I will say, Golconda, okay? There was no Bose engineers, no engineers those days. But somebody can shout from the down, and 5 kilometers down, he can hear. So that's the imagination. And if you can combine that imagination power with this knowledge and skill, I think every individual can be innovative in this country. Okay? I think we need a culture that's coming to before challenging. The culture is there in this country, but the facilitation has to take place. The individuals are willing to take a risk. But then how do you create that? We are talking about clinical, which has been, world science, again, we're talking about again today, clinical. That's ridiculous. But in spite of all that, I don't want to be pessimistic about India. Okay? I want to be optimistic of India, because if I say then nobody, GSK and other people will not invest in India. So we don't want that to happen.
Well, his open offer opens today.
Open offer. I think, in spite of all these things, we still looked at it one simple angle. A typhoid is a problem, not in Europe and US. It's a problem of the emerging world. And we looked at it, typhoid, can we solve the problem? We developed a typhoid conjugate vaccine. First time in the world, we launched it. But then we see a different problem in the connotation. Unless GSK launches, we will not get the popularity. So it's a promotion, market promotion is also, the doctor's perception is, how come an Indian company can launch a new vaccine? We see a paradigm problem in the marketing angle. But if you have done rotavirus, the one nice thing about, I want to tell you again, that to all the audience, in biological system, you can come around and still not violate the patents. It's very important. And I'm a strong believer of patents. Okay? And I'm a strong believer of intellectual properties. We need to protect that. But the beauty of the biology is you can come around differently and then come out and answer same. Like GSK has got Merck, both has got hepatitis B vaccine. Insulin, Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk has got, Aventis has got. So you still can come around and final product. So you can be smart enough to come out that strategies. And I think India can be innovative. And coming to your challenging of clinical, I don't think this meeting, I think next meeting for the BioAsia is going to be clinical trial challenges.
Well, I'll leave that to the organizers. Yes.
Can I ask just a question? One thing that I'm seeing in countries such as Brazil, Korea, Russia, significant support from government, right, in terms of fomenting and investing. Do you think that this, for India, and I'm not familiar with the Indian environment, would that be a solution for India?
So is there, so are we talking about policies not being in line with the company's strategies in terms of going ahead on finding innovative solutions? Our policies are hindrance. And when we say policies, it could be a lot of policies, and clinical trials could be on patents. Where do you see the challenge?
I think, it's a very important point, what Roy raised it. See, this is the only country in the world, okay, the entrepreneurship works. No government works. I mean, in the sense, government doesn't support an entrepreneur in all angle, in the financial angle. You ask me 1 rupee from the government, I will not get 1 rupee penny. Okay? A government institute can get any amount of money in this country, but not a private industry. Okay? So in a way, private industry is untouchable in this country for the government. But that is changing. I mean, I'm not talking about the regulatory people. They are neutral to everything, okay, whatever it is do. But the government policy issue is not there favorable for the entrepreneurship. I think this is the only country in the world where government is not involved, entrepreneurship is working, number one. Number two, coming to the other issues like the logistics, the major, I don't know, something I was trying to remember, one more important point, the emerging world. The private entrepreneurs is the greatest people entrepreneurs of this country, backbone. And the younger generation is going to be the major backbone for this country's future.
Sanjeev, would you want to add a point? I see you have...
See, I think three things what Krishna mentioned are true. What we need is knowledge or scientists, what we need is resources, and what we need is environment. We keep continuously talking about environment, which we all understand the problem around environment. We have no dearth of knowledge or scientists in this country, and we should continuously talk about it, because that's important to attract, whether it is my global R&D head who is here or whether it is GSK's R&D people. We need to continuously talk about it, because that will attract people to come here. The second thing is resources. I think the point about resources is it's about size also. What GV today has built a $2.5 billion organization, what he can do today he could not have done 5 years ago. But there is enough and more resources available if there is enough cooperation between companies. And we try to label somebody as big pharma, MNC, Indian companies. Is GV's company not an MNC? It's also an MNC. I think everybody is playing all over the world today. The world is more flat than what it used to be. Yeah. So collaboration between companies on trying to add each other's strength will provide enough resources for innovation. There is no choice for India, and I think very rightly Maninder said, there is no choice but for India to move up the value chain. Let's not even debate that.
We've always been talking about a lot of human talent in India, resources are there, companies now even have money to invest into R&D, and you're saying issues in environment will remain, but we have to go ahead. Then where is it that we are getting stuck? Is there an issue with the intent that the companies really want to get into it?
Intent and the appetite, right? Yeah. There is, as GV mentioned, there is a different risk profile. When you are innovating, your chances of failure are much higher than chances of, being successful. And so in order to do that, you need to have a long-term view, and that long-term view has to be supported by, financial resources, because the money can run out real fast. So you got to have a plan that, okay, I'm going to invest and continue to invest. And for that, environment is also very important. You mentioned governmental regulations. We need consistent policies, legislation, incentives, all those, because in countries all around the world, there are lots of incentives that are provided by the local governments, by their federal or central governments. And I think those are the kinds of things that we also want to see here in India for us to be successful on this road.
Can I say one thing? I think both Sanjeev and GV have talked about industry collaboration, right?
Right.
In my mind, I think one easy thing to do in India to enhance all the innovation really is the partnership with academia. Let's forget the policies of the government for a while. Nobody is preventing industry to lend a hand and make these academicians successful. And, look at Google, right, out of Stanford. Look at Facebook out of Harvard. Those enterprises, which are billion dollars worth, all came out of academia, right? So the role of government in my mind is there, like Mahinder said. However, the industrialists who are successful need to start, the dialogue first.
So I want to respond in two different ways. One is working with academics. It's not easy. I've tried a lot. I find it easier to collaborate with a US university than a university in Hyderabad. We do a lot of work in Hyderabad, University of Hyderabad. We have a center there which we funded. The atmosphere is very hostile. They don't want us there. So it's very difficult to work with somebody who doesn't want to work with you, right? We have projects running in MIT or Princeton, and they work very well. So it's not for lack of trying. That's one track. The other thing I really want to ask the panel here is that, we are all talking about innovation, but there are very few examples of a generic company which made the transition to becoming an innovator. There's one big one, Teva, which got into it by chance, by licensing a MS drug from one of the Israeli institutes and went there. They've not been able to repeat that trick. And somewhere I think we are trying to do something which is almost has not been done before. The fundamental DNA of a generic company is very different from the DNA of an innovator company and vice versa. I mean, GSK cannot compete with us on generics. I cannot compete with GSK on innovation. So you're trying, you mentioned the word sprint and marathon, right? You can't have the same athlete do the sprint and the marathon. If you're trained to be a sprinter, you'll be a sprinter. You can't be a marathon runner. So this is something which really plays on my mind a lot because I'm trying to do the same thing that being a sprinter and a marathon runner. So I'll tell you, I'm very used to playing $1 million bets. Each product I develop costs $1 million, $2 million, $3 million maximum. I put 30, 40 such bets every year. Now suddenly you're asking me to put a one bet of $100 million. The heart goes a little faster and it's not easy. So I struggle with this all the time. I'm asking the panel if you have...
GB, was it easy when you started making APIs several years ago?
Nothing is easy, but right. You're trained to do a certain thing. Your mind is thinking in terms of some zeros, and when you change that by an order of magnitude, it's not easy. So we get used to it. Over time, you get used to it. So for example, even say Novartis as a generics division, they manage it very differently. Correct. And Teva manages that very differently. And we're trying to do that within the organization, play these...
So what is really required to take that jump or that plunge? Obviously, the heartbeat will go up, yes. But what is really required there? Krishna, would you want to add?
I think Praveen pointed out one important, the public-private partnership. I'll put it in a simple word. It was hard to work before, but now things are changing. Even government is also serious now to work with industry. I'll give two good examples. One is Genome Valley right in Hyderabad is successful because of public-private partnership of the government and this one. The second is we have done rotavirus vaccine trial, which is done about almost 12,000 newborn babies. I mean, doing a clinical trial in this country itself is tough. And the newborn baby and a pregnant mother. And the 5th month of a pregnant mother, we had to ask the mother, give me your baby, the moment the baby was born. And we had to do it in slums. It was controversial. This would not have been possible, but it's only but for the public-private partnership, where the Department of Biotechnology and CDC Atlanta, NIH, Stanford, and the All India Institute of Medical Science, Indian Institute of Science, everybody's involved in it. Mm-hmm. And it made it happen. This is the first efficacy trial in this country done. Mm-hmm. So it is possible, but you need to have a lot of patience. We need a Nobel Peace Prize, every one of us, so to have it. So
actually, GV answered his own question. He said how Teva chanced upon a molecule. See, serendipity is the essence of research. You can do a lot of research and you'll fail a lot, but sometimes an idea comes. Aren't there gems out there in the academia or in smaller companies that you can license in and then take them all the way to the finish line? So I think, there is one pathway that, Teva has, quite well demonstrated with their $4 billion drug. And I think that's something to emulate.
Well, we've spoken a lot on what really can be done, but are these things actually being practiced by the companies here in India, both Indian as well as multinationals, whether it's collaboration with the academia, whether it is collaboration in industry with industry? GV had his own views that he doesn't want to collaborate with Indian.
No, I didn't say that. I said
it's difficult to collaborate with Indian academia.
We do collaborate. We do a lot of work with
institutions. But are we really doing that? There are a lot of things. We also read a lot of papers where these are the challenges, these are the solutions for those challenges. But are we really using those solutions here?
I'll let my fellow panelists to discuss what's taking place in India or not. But one other, just one offering one point. I think it's very important for R&D is that not only the amount of money you're putting behind that, the portfolio, right? Because sometimes what you see often, companies developing one idea, one drug, and chances of failure are actually huge, right? So to go through clinical trials, all, preclinical, clinical, all the regulatory approvals. So to be successful, you need to think about a portfolio. You know that out of 5,000 molecules identified, one eventually will become a medicine, and then out of 100, one will actually pay back the investment. So that mindset is important. And the other, just one other quick point is, we had yesterday the presentation from Chris Searling from KPMG, and you talk about the hockey field. I don't know if you've seen that. Science is also changing, right? Now we're moving sort of away from traditional drug development. Nanotechnology is going to be very important. Partnerships with other sectors would be absolutely critical. You saw the Google lenses. So I think we need to think which platforms we want to, India would like to build to develop its future R&D base.
Well, which is where the whole debate on solutions or drugs for, the diseases that affect Indian patients or patients in the emerging markets. We're seeing a lot of research happen, but nothing is going forward on that, especially on the multinational front. We see they're complaining a lot about the patent policies or the policy issues, but very few of them really come forward to do research for diseases that really affect the populations here. Sanjeev?
So I think that's a very important point. First of all, whether Big Pharma is doing enough in trying to understand the tropical diseases or not. At least currently, the organization I work for is developed a multi-drug resistant TB drug.
Yes.
Which country has the largest issue of multi-drug resistant TB? It is India. So is it not for India's benefit? Now I go all out and say that, look, as a company, we are ready to do anything. I would need cooperation from everybody around. See, the follow-through is important. The drug is available. The drug is probably one of the best things that has happened in 40 years for a patient of TB. Now, there is government who needs to collaborate with us. The industry needs to collaborate and say that, look, this is great science brought to the country, leave this company alone. Yeah. Third thing is, we need collaboration at every level from where the TB patients are getting treated in this country. There are major centers where, how do we manage that well? We also need to ensure that we don't develop resistance for the drug by overusage or wrong usage. How do we manage that? This requires a lot of collaboration. And that's the challenge that we need to manage in innovation. So I think it's not true that Big Pharma doesn't take care of tropical diseases. It's not completely true. A lot of effort has happened. Astra put in a lot of effort for several years. Yes. It didn't work out, it's one thing. But can you blame them for not putting effort? No, you cannot blame them for not putting effort. I'll tell you, I now look at a different challenge from Krishna. Krishna got great collaboration in getting a strain for rotavirus. He developed it. He's done a great clinical trial. He's done with the approval process. Now look, the next level of challenge, what collaboration he requires. What does he require? He requires the Pediatric Association of India to say that this is a great innovation and allows it. He should get the association to elevate it to compulsory immunization program. The government should include it in the compulsory immunization program. As the country took great effort in actually innovating around ensuring polio eradication, 150,000 children die every year of rotavirus in this country. 150,000. It's not a small number.
And that is a great example. I worked on a meningococcal C vaccine when I was at Chiron, which is now part of Novartis. And we were approached by the UK government that they had an outbreak of meningococcal C in that country. We were given a year to come up with the drug that we already had in phase 3. And all three of us, Wyeth, Chiron, and there was a third company, we all, we worked hard. We were given a contract at the end of that period, and we were given an expedited approval. And the government made it possible for us to first get the drug approved, get the vaccine approved, and then they guaranteed the market for a year or two. That medicine, that vaccine is available all around Europe and also in the United States.
Sanjeev, you spoke about development of drugs for India, but a lot of issues that stop that drug let me bring this very debatable question of affordability and accessibility. Another two very overused terms in the Indian context. We keep using it here and there. But developing a drug, again, so innovation and innovation specific for Indian population. So developing a drug, but is it possible? Is it priced in a way, or is it made accessible to the population of India? Only then will that invention actually work.
So that's a very, very important point. And again, we confuse access with affordability. And again, we confuse affordability with price. You know, this is a social burden. I always say that this is social burden of the country, health. In most countries, the social burden of health is automatically taken over by the government. Here, because of whatever, either it's policy, resources, or whatever you can talk, social burden, a big part of social burden is carried by the companies.
But that's how the Indian market is, and
Yeah,
we can't
correct.
change it
Correct,
right
correct.
now.
So we need to understand that the barriers that we have are not just about affordability and price. And I always say this, that if at all price was the only barrier in this country, there would no woman in this country would have suffered from iron deficiency. Yeah. So I don't think that's a barrier. We overdo this one dimension of the problem.
Yeah.
Even if, let me give another example. Even if we develop the best cancer, anti-cancer drug, let's say lung cancer, for example, and say that this drug is made affordable from a pricing point of view. How do you reach a patient in a village to a center where there is an oncologist who can treat?
Again, two disconnected bits. Accessibility and affordability. Yes. Two disconnected,
So
right? You
therefore,
say there is a drug
yes,
which is not reaching the patient, but we also have had examples of drugs which are not affordable to people who can actually reach out to
so that's
those drugs.
another issue. I think let's look at, and I'm making maybe a controversial point here. Let me make another point. Glivec case, everybody talks about. Have we ever talked about how many patients have received free Glivec in this country? Do you know how much is Novartis spend every year on giving free Glivec to patients?
That's
Yeah? So now that's access. How do you create access? If we continue to fight this battle on intellectual property and not on access, we are missing the big point. We have to fight innovation on how do we create access in this country and hold everybody accountable. Hold companies, government, society accountable to say that how does the innovation reach the right patient.
Yeah.
But do not confuse it with intellectual property battles, because that has nothing to do with access in this country.
fair enough, and intellectual property should also not be confused with pricing.
Yes,
In
absolutely.
that
So-
context.
So,
I'm-
let me fight your battles, right? In a more politically correct way. So somebody has to pay for innovation, right? You want us to, government wants new drugs, wants us to focus on neglected disease and bring them to market. Who will pay the price? Somebody has to pay the price. The healthcare department doesn't have the budget to do this. We don't have a well-developed insurance system. Why should a company pay? What is the incentive for a company to, invest in innovation? Somebody has to pay for innovation. Otherwise, innovation won't happen.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Rogerio, I'll bring you here in from the innovator background. Who pays for innovation? But if the innovation is actually not reaching the population that you intend to, does your innovation actually work?
It defeats the purpose, right? So when you're talking about innovation, we're talking about how can you innovate in terms of access, right? In terms of finding different solutions to make these medicines available. I also believe that intellectual property should not be a barrier for access. The prices should not be set based on the length of a patent protection. They should be set in a way that provides sustainable volume growth. And ultimately, it's all the players sitting together and finding a common ground. Governments, industry, academics, and actually before you even start developing a drug or a vaccine, you should start thinking about how this vaccine will be funded. Many examples with the pneumococcal vaccines, where European governments got together and committed, once the vaccine was available, to fund the vaccine, and manufacturers committed to make that vaccine available at a cost plus a low markup. So there are ways for all of the sectors getting together and finding and making sure that these medicines actually reach who need them.
And pricing is not just a emerging market problem. European countries have pricing problems, US has pricing problems, and everybody is able to find a solution that works for them. If you look at the example of Merck and Januvia, they did use differential pricing here, and it worked. It worked for Merck, it worked for us, for the population, and there are possibilities if we sit down and work together.
So you're saying there are ways of innovating on the pricing front as well, even when we have the product, but we are seeing very fewer examples of that as of now.
So, but I fought the battle for the Januvia price. So I can confidently tell you it's not an easy battle to fight. Certainly not an easy battle to fight. But you can do it for India, and you can get these things done. What we want is that everybody should respect. Once good work is done, everybody should respect it. Because then otherwise you're killing intellectual property and you're killing future of diseases.
But if that was the case, if intellectual property had to be protected and respected, there were ways in which most multinational, I'm sorry if this is coming across as me fighting a battle against the multinationals, that's not the case, but I'm just trying to understand where is it that we get stuck? We say we have a fair product patent regime here in India, which came into being in 2005, which is compliant to all the trade agreements and laws. Even then, we have companies, say that it is not helping them grow in India and not helping them push products here in India. Yes, Krishna.
I think a lot of Republicans are here. So, I'm not. What I want to say is, affordability is very important for Indian context because, like take example of rotavirus. It's a poor people who die in the villages where they cannot even have an access to the hospitals. They are the one who's going to die. The rich people in our cities, they can have immediately get out of emergency hospital, get admitted, they get hospitalization for a day and get out of it. No problem. But 160,000, as Navin said, 160,000 children die in this area, in this country. So we looked at only one simple thing as a company. Okay, we should not violate the patents of the GSK and Merck, number one, is important. Number two, we have to develop Indian strain and make it public-private partnership. To make an affordable is one of the ways of public-private partnership. So for example, for us, thanks to the Gates Foundation, gave us $30 million. Norway government gave $10 million. The Department of Biotechnology gave $10 million, and we put a little bit of our resources, and we put together everything, and we've done all the trial. So now it brings affordability in this public-private partnership. Suppose if I invested everything on my own, the cost of the vaccine will be high. But the sad part, I'm telling them it's $1 a dose vaccine, but still our government doesn't want to buy. That's a different matter. That's a different matter, okay? So you have accessibility, affordability is there. But market is important, and that is a bigger challenge.
Let me ask you, how many cell phones are now in this country? At one point, no one was able to afford it, and the prices haven't come down that much. How are people buying cell phones? So I think, we have to take analogy from other fields. We have to all sit together, including the government, including the academia, and come up with that solution that is eluding us.
Vijay, you had a point to mention.
No, just going to echo. I think, and today, even for certain vaccines, there's funding already available through the Gavi, the Global Vaccines Alliance, that could be used by India today to make vaccination available, right? And in some cases, even if you lower the price to 50 cents, people will not be able to afford. So I think we need to find a model where the government is also committed to support and in vaccination.
When I look at the model which Big Pharma has, and working on the topical disease, like you said, Novartis Center, GSK, AZ had it till recently here. They have invested quite a bit of money fighting local diseases, if I can call it, fighting local diseases. They made a solution out of it. I think we need to just find a solution how to protect the intellectual property, but have the affordability for all regions of the world for each and every drug, right? Because otherwise the innovation goes to waste. It doesn't reach the user in its entirety.
Jimmy, where is that, in your sense, that balance between the two?
So I think after listening to the arguments made, I feel health should be a priority of the government. And once it becomes a priority, like immunization became a priority, we solved polio. When it becomes a priority, there are ways to find solutions between companies, between industries, and the government. Today, does it really figure that we, in the priorities of the government to get the latest possible medicines into this country at affordable prices or whatever? Is this a big priority for the government, and is government engaged with the industry? I don't see that. We see a drug controller who wants to control and ensure that the industry is behaving. But is he enabling the health of the population? Who's responsible for that from a regulatory perspective to get the best medicines for the population, to ensure the best treatment protocols are there? And we don't even have treatment protocols developed for our own population. We actually borrow protocols from the West, whereas our genetic makeup is different, and it shows up in many ways in cardiovascular diseases, in diabetes and all that. But, we don't have our own Indian adapted clinical trials to understand the differences. And these are all things the government should worry about and should enable clinical development to develop protocols which suit our genome and our body. And there's a lot of scope for the government to come in and take responsibility for the health of its population.
But we're seeing a beginning. We got our own guidelines, especially at least in the biosimilar space. We are building up on that. There is always a starting point. But are we going to, say that just because the government doesn't do this, we're not going to do anything beyond that?
No, we will do our bit, but we need an enabling environment with the government, with the same intent of, for the health of the population. Who owns it? It can't be each family to its own or each industry company to its own. Government must own the healthcare problem. And this is fundamental to every government in the world. Healthcare is a priority for every government. So in our situation, I think we have to step that up. There is a priority, and I think we do a lot of work. But if we take on more responsibility, I think the situation will change in India.
Krishna, you wanted to add something?
I just want to say that the government role to play and pressing, but not.
Just hold for a minute. Don't press again.
Okay, it'll start. I can shout now. The government, so like for example, the rotavirus bill got licensed. Now, if it is the government absorbs, it gives me, moral boost. Okay, now I can solve more problems. But that vaccine doesn't go in, then I'll go into cocoon again. And typhoid is this is the capital. India and Pakistan is the capital for the typhoid, not the Europe and US. But do we realize the epidemics of it? We will rather use Reddy Labs antibiotics and GSK antibiotics, but not vaccines. So we are more of a therapeutic segment rather than the prevention. And that if they can absorb the innovation quickly into the marketplace by the public policy makers, then it gets more stimulation for innovation.
Fair enough. We've spoken a lot about what the government can do. I have a very disbalanced panel here because I don't have anyone from the government to actually counter these points. So I think let's get on to the next.
We are all correct, though. We are all correct.
Yes, that makes you all correct.
One last comment. Even with governments, when we deal with pricing in the European community, it's a negotiation, okay? It's not written in black and white. Often here, in the experience of most people, everything is just black and white. And you mentioned the word guideline. Guideline is a guideline. That the negotiation starts there. But, it's not scriptable. All the stuff that we do is not scriptable. So there's a lot of gray area that people negotiate with the government. The firms negotiate with the government. So that mindset has to come.
Yeah, I don't think that exists here in the DCGI office right now.
Well, we'll get someone from DCGI in our next panel to talk on defense of the government.
Because I don't think any of them here deals directly to a lot of government.
Yes, and you have
I handle myself as an entrepreneur. But I see a change in the shift in last 5 years. Okay, I want to tell truthfully. The government policymakers, now earlier, the industry people were not allowed. Okay, were untouchable. But now the government, industry people are allowed to get into the various committees, and the government is looking at industry as a partner now, and they're also changing the mindset. I mean, some of the officials want to change, but the system is so, we are carrying with the British colonial culture still, and it takes time to change. But it is, in last 5 years, there's a dramatic shift which is happening. Whether it's a drug controller office, you may not see that very transparently, still problem, but I do see a lot of things what is happening behind, and that is going to have an impact in the next 2 years. 2 years, there will be a possibility.
So there is an optimism from the government side. We'll get someone in the next panel to maybe talk on that. But my next question is, we've spoken a lot about the challenges from the government side, from policy side, market side. But are we, with all those challenges, does that mean we're not going to invest enough in that? Are we investing enough in R&D, in innovation, both Indian companies as well as multinationals in India?
Let me, I think we've gone into a negative spin. We should be proud of what we have achieved. Absolutely. There are many, many success stories here. Absolutely. We have innovated incredibly with the limited amounts of money. We dominate many therapies in the world today, and India is a real success story in this field. And I don't think we should be defensive about ourselves saying, are we doing enough? We are doing a lot. If you look at drug discovery, which seems to be the debate here, there are very few countries in the world which do that. In Asia, outside Japan, it's only South Korea which does a little bit. And I think we do as much as they do, if not more. So I would certainly say it's a success story. Innovation is a big success story in India. You see all the who's who of the world doing research in India. Indian companies doing a lot of research.
Is that really happening?
Of course it is.
The kind of investments that we see in R&D into India hasn't grown that much in the last couple of years.
That's not true.
That's not true.
Could you add figures if...
So let me put it some other way, and then let me prove it to you. That, look, we are talking about a lot of development happening now in the developed world on targeted therapies. That's because the understanding of the disease has got better and better.
Yes.
The amount of investment this country has seen in the last few years, though in the last 1 year or so we are having issues with clinical trials, the amount of clinical trials that happened in this country, the amount of understanding of the disease that this country is seeing is going to lead us to better development of science. Yes. And that's happened. And substantial, you ask anybody here, everybody has invested heavily in clinical trials in this country in the last few years. Obviously, the understanding of science has got better. You have Dr. Srinath Reddy commenting the other day, just last week, saying that the guidelines around LDL for Indians should be a little different because the science around cholesterol and diabetes in India is different. The genetic mapping is different. The thrifty gene comes into play. So why are we talking all this? It's because we have done a lot of investment in science here, and we are starting to understand the disease pattern here. So it's not true that there has not been enough investment. Now, if you want to measure it in terms of how many dollars have been invested in the country in R&D, in drug discovery is one way of looking at it. But you do drug discovery based on science, and the disease understanding. There's a lot of investment that has happened in this country.
I think let me just bring the message home. Approximately a year and a half ago, I signed an agreement with Panacea Biotech. I mean, we commercialize products only in US, right? But Panacea Biotech, we found that the science and the clinical trials being done in India were impressive. And we signed an agreement with them to develop 18 complex products, and they seem to be doing really well. That innovation which they are doing is being transferred from here in India to US.
So you're saying investments are coming into India. I'll get back to...
So this is not an investment-intensive industry. So you won't see, billions of dollars coming in here. But a lot of science is being done in India. You don't need billions to do research. But, in terms of companies engaged, in terms of scientists engaged, I think we're up there.
Many Indian scientists outside India doing science, significant out there.
I think in last 5 years, we do see a lot of new generation entrepreneurs. It's coming. But the problem, India is like elephant. It moves very slow, vegetarian. It goes by step, okay? But, we always have a contrast with China, okay? China is like a tiger, It can eat away everything. It can eat away GSK, everybody it can eat away. But elephants doesn't eat. But it'll go slow, but it's steady, but it'll win.
But today in the world, the Indian industry is far ahead of the Chinese in every field in the pharmaceutical business.
This is true, absolutely true. You take it.
This is one industry where we are well ahead.
You take
But,
number of
but, you
USFDA
still
approved
see,
plants.
but you still see a lot of investments in R&D. I'm again back to that term of investments, going to China from the big pharma and not coming into India.
Yeah.
So you say we are way ahead of them, but we still don't see
tell
big
me,
pharma actually coming here
is
and
that-
doing.
You
Is
ask
that
anybody
really-
out there. I mean, yeah.
Is the investment in China really for innovation purposes? I think they're just, the investments are to cover the market, to corner that big market, because they have a system that allows multinational firms to sell efficiently because of how the political structure is. But I think, I see a groundswell here. That I think there comes a point when all these discussions that we are having, they carry their own momentum, and then things start happening. As we are hearing, that there are some changes occurring, and there are, also our colleagues sitting here are investing more into, or at least have an eye for innovative drugs. So I'm very optimistic about this.
Rogerio, you wanted to add something?
I think we need to look at from a multinational point of view, and I'm one that, as responsible for emerging markets, Asia Pacific, I'm constantly challenging the organization to to reallocate R&D funds from your traditional U.S. and in Europe into emerging markets. And I think and I've been trying to spend a lot of time to understand where we have excellence, some specific niche areas that we can start, developing, visiting many countries. I think what we want, as a multinational, it's a clear rules of engagement, governments that are willing actually to fund not only the investment, but actually once the medicines are available, to the population. Maybe that's one of the reasons why companies are sending investments to China. We're seeing, actually, I would absolutely watch out for South Korea, huge commitment to develop an industry, the Pharma 2020. I'll not be surprised if I see Korean companies ahead of the game. But I think at the end of the day, it's not only one element. It's a whole set of elements: availability of ideas, availability of scientists, academic centers that are willing to do translational science. Because often what you find is that science is just willing to do science for the sake of science, and not science to translate into a new medicine, which create a virtual cycle in the country, and that becomes attractive for companies, for multinational companies.
Mm-hmm. Praveen, do you want to add in your experience of working here with the Indian companies, have you seen that growth?
Yeah, let me just say this. I developed 2 corporations in China, right? And actually sat on their boards also. And I couldn't agree more in terms of, what you need to figure out is what is their specialty, what are they good at, and utilize that skill set for the good purpose of the corporation at a global level. Because you cannot do A to Z in environments like China, and same comment I was making earlier in my comments about India, right? You have to take what is great at that location, or that skill set which is available there, and utilize to the fullest for worldwide development. So, for example, when I developed an organization in Thane here, in one of my predecessor companies, what I found is that they're absolutely great at doing stability work, analytical development work, easy formulation development work. So the global development for all those aspects was done in Thane, right? When you look at China, they were very, very good at doing scale-up work and making sure that they can produce, let's say, more comfortable formulations, even beyond Indian formulations in their laboratories. I utilize that to develop products for Korea. I utilize them to develop products for US. So I think what we have to figure out is, Does innovation come in one shape, size, and form, or does it come in different shapes, size, and forms, and you utilize what is available to the best of your ability for the good purpose?
That brings us back to the original question that we
Exactly.
started with.
Exactly.
Just make one more comment. One example, actually, from one of the delegations that are attending BioAsia today. Argentina has been, at least in the way we've been engaging, ahead of the game. Minister Lino Barão yesterday presenting, he's been in the forefront of engaging with GSK and trying to join, to put together a joint effort to identify science in Argentina. So Argentina is contributing with half of the funding, the Argentinian government, GSK half of the funding. We're doing call for proposals. We're trying to understand where is the science. And sometimes not only the money, it's actually the ability to take Argentinian scientists and make them cooperate and work in the GSK labs, in the global labs of GSK, and starting that interaction. I think that's a nice step that was later on copied by Brazil. So it started with Argentina, Brazil, and taking to other countries in the world.
Mm-hmm. You know, we've spoken a lot on the policies and how the government can help. Let me bring another issue of companies taking that risk forward. We have had certain examples here in India where companies have taken that risk, gone ahead, developed drugs. Even Dr. Reddy's had that, has an history in that. But we still need to scale up that in terms of the risk capital that Indian companies as well as multinationals who invest in India, and then we need to increase that. Where is it that that is getting stuck? Because we've discussed there's a lot of intent. We are all in favor of developing drugs and innovative products for the Indian market. Policies, obviously, every country has a different way to look at policies and innovations, and governments will have challenges, especially in a country like India. Where is it that the scale up on the risk capital is getting
I'm going to go back to the point I made much earlier, is that there is enough scope in industry-industry collaboration. There's much scope. And we'll find resources if all the companies start cooperating with each other on a common problem that they want to solve. I'll also raise maybe another controversial issue here, is that why are we looking only at pharma cooperation? If there are two big success stories India has seen in the last 25 years, it's pharmaceuticals and it's software or IT industry.
IT services.
Yeah? Now, it's interesting that both these industries, our success was that we produced the best generic medicines and became the kind of real supplier of generic medicines to the world. On the other hand, we produced the best services in IT industry and became the best service provider in IT industry. As technology is converging in both these areas, imagine if we have collaboration in India and start finding resources between IT companies and pharma companies in India.
But what is stopping that?
So, I think the problem is that I think there is a level of inertia when you start doing well in what you're doing. Yeah. If you start doing well, and I'm trying to be a little controversial. I say, if GV is going to grow by 30% every year by selling all over the world, what he's doing now, his reason to do something out of the ordinary will always build some inertia in it. And I'm not talking of him in particular, but this is what happens. And that is where big companies have been built globally. That they have gone out of that zone where they were comfortable and tried to do something which is uncomfortable.
But the industry collaboration is something that we can always look forward to, but we haven't seen that happen in India, at least with Indian companies coming together working on drugs. We've seen that happening with Big Pharma in the international space.
I mean, let me respond to that. First of all, I don't like to see this as a problem. I think we're doing great. Yes. Compared to the globe, companies of our size investing in innovation, there's no parallel to what Indian companies are doing. Absolutely. So we should be proud of what we're doing. So we shouldn't be defensive and say we're not doing enough. We are doing a lot. We should be proud of it. Number one. Number two, you said, why don't Indian companies collaborate with each other? Because we don't have complementarity. I need a certain skill which the same company in the same circumstances won't have. I need large investment that only a global pharmaceutical company can fund. So that's why we collaborate with partners where there's complementarity and there is an ability to help each other in what we have and what we don't have.
But the complementarity can also come within the country. The Indian
we do. But if you're saying we work with Cipla, for example, and we work with Ranbaxy, we do that. Where there is complementarity, we do it. But in the case of innovation, where the need is global clinical development, knowledge, and large investments, these are not things we have, and we have to seek wherever they are there. We have to seek them out wherever they are, and we do that.
Do you want to add here? Because we've again, in this course of discussion, we've said that everyone has resources to invest, and we are also looking at a common market, common disease profiles that we want to innovate in. Then why should collaborations?
So collaboration is a great word, again overused, but our company collaborates, has born out of collaborations. Let me just say that, because our technology has been used to commercialize 8 drugs for other companies. Now we are developing our own drugs. And I don't think when there are collaborations are concerned, you should be concerned about Indian MNC, small, big. In the US and Europe, all small biotech or biopharmaceutical companies are completely dependent upon the big pharma to come in at some point and, pitch in their, go into their deep pockets and, spend some money. And they do. But, we have to have that mindset. Perhaps a good baby step would be to take a molecule to phase 1, phase 2, do the trials in such a quality way that, that establishes your need for the drug, your medical need, and its, proposed efficacy. And I think, there will be no dearth of partners. Everyone is looking for such a partner where you have a drug that is safe and that is likely to be successful as an efficacious drug. So I don't think we should restrict ourselves to Indian or Indian MNC. It could be wherever, you have complementarity. I completely agree.
So would that, in a sense, bring us to the point that we have a lot of strategies and actions that we want to do, but it's not complementing with each other. We want to go ahead, collaborate, but we're restricting ourselves to certain. We want to invest, but the business strategies are restricting ourselves to a point. We want to go ahead, develop drugs for the general population and the drugs and the diseases that inflict our population, but then policies are stopping us. I know I'm sounding a little pessimist, but I see a lot of optimism in you, and which is what I want to bring out, which is why I'm acting as a devil's advocate here. Are we seeing actions match strategies?
Let me put the white elephant on the table. I think what is preventing Indian companies, including, I think, your experience, GV, is a blank check. I think we need money at risk. And I don't think there are companies in India who can afford to have that blank check, the money at risk. I think you spoke yesterday, 4 or 5 factors if I start, you said venture capital money, at risk money. I think that's what is lacking.
So let me build on that. As a public company, my shareholders want me to deliver earnings growth quarter on quarter. And I have to deliver that as a CEO, responsible CEO representing the shareholders. And at the same time, I have to invest in creating the future of the business. I have to increase the R&D spend on my core business and also invest in creating the next wave of businesses. So balancing all that, it's really, and the size is not enough to spend a lot of money. And today we are the largest spender of R&D in this country, and it's only 12% of our revenue. Beyond that, it will start hitting me, and earnings will be affected. I can't ignore that. You have to. It's a delicate game of continuing to fund your current businesses, limit your exposure on the future businesses, and continue to go up on the innovation value chain,
so to say. We've discussed quite a bit. At this point in time, I would throw open the discussion for any questions from the audience. We may have time to take a couple of them. Well, Just one request, could you identify yourself?
Yeah, Adi Agnihotri from Atlanta, USA. For innovation, we need a pipeline of trained researchers and scientists. The CEO panelists have not spoken about how do we cultivate that caliber of scientists in our schools and universities.
Who would you direct that question to?
Anyone who wants to take.
Anyone who wants to take it. It's an open question.
See, let me start by saying this. I think we are excellent in Indian universities when it comes to basic sciences, right? Absolutely great chemists, great biologists, great engineers. The gap is those great chemists, biologists, engineers are all theoretical in nature, not applied in nature. So I think we need to build that application mentality, which exists in IITs, but it doesn't exist in most of the other universities around India. I think we need to fill that gap.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. I do agree that there is a lot of great talent, and once a problem is defined, they can crack any problem. I've seen this. But people are not able to imagine the next problem that we should solve. And that training somewhere seems to be missing out, but how to help our scientists think about and imagine what the next problem should be. But if a problem is defined, a challenge is defined, we are as good as anybody out there in the world.
Yeah, I call it the analytical skill set, which comes with the applied,
Just
solving problems.
say in simple logic with Chinese student and Indian student. I always like that because it's easy to be audience to understand that. The Chinese cannot speak good English, but they're successful in science. They reason only because of skills, nothing else. Indians are very good in knowledge, very good in degree, but not skills. That's all the difference is.
Well, I hope.
Let me just interject here, because every company I go to in the U.S., every university I go in the U.S., they're Indian scientists. In biology, in discovery, we are not talking about pharmaceutical sciences because we know the story there. So I think, we are all trained here, right here, and then we go there. And, like in the IT industry, people have started to come back. Even in the pharma industry, people are coming back. I think we have to incentivize those people to come back and train that thought process and cultivate that thought process in the biologists of this country, because that's where I think the discoveries would come from, and that's an area where we are really good at engineering. I come from an IIT, so I know that. But biology is where we lack.
Any other question? Gentleman here, can we have a mic, please?
My name is Shastri from Pharma Synergies, and our business model is to create synergies between global and regional pharma industries. I want to ask Dr. Reddy Lab CEO, do we need to reinvent our R&D focus? Are we focusing too much on synthetic drugs? We have a rich cultural and historical traditional strength on our Ayurvedic and traditional medicines, like our neems, like our turmeric. Why are we not focusing our R&D efforts on our traditional medicines?
So I do think that area has been mined heavily. Sources of ideas can be from anywhere, and Ayurvedic drugs suffer from the problem of characterization today, from an approval point of view. So you have to identify the active ingredient, find methods to test them, and understand the purity, and we are doing that. I think a lot of companies have used folklore, Ayurvedic medicine as a source of ideas, and that is being done. So I'm not sure what else we can do.
Yeah, there.
I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. This question is directed towards Dr. Hora and Dr. Prasad. Initially, they mentioned something about a sprinter and a marathon runner versus, and Dr. Prasad mentioned about elephant versus tiger. is there a way or we can develop some sort of training program or a personal trainer that could help a sprinter become a marathon runner, an elephant become a tiger? It's a very hypothetical question, but...
Yeah. So short answer is you can do that, but you can't remain a tiger once you become an elephant. Right? So what organizationally what we do is we separate the organizations. We manage them very differently. The incentives are aligned in a very different way. We allow a different culture to evolve in that part of the organization, which is doing the basic research or innovative products. It's not as driven by efficiency, cost, time, as much as we do it in the generic side. We create different organizational subcultures. Some companies have actually spun it off and managed innovative R&D completely separately from the core company. So we keep the elephants and tigers separate.
It can be done, definitely. We are doing it for ourselves here. We have an R&D center in Hyderabad, and it is managed the same way. It has the same standards, quality, safety, work-wise, process-wise. They are part of global teams in our corporation. And, when they come, one of the biggest comments I get from the employees is, wow, it's so different from working in a generics company. So I think it can be done, and, we are doing in our own small way. But I think that's where the future is if we want to be a big player in innovation.
Hi, this is Ganti from Karal Bio. To Krishna. See, in our country, about more than 50,000 biotechnology students are coming out every year from different colleges. Graduation, undergraduation, post-graduation, BSc level, whatever it is. These industries making any innovative platforms to evolve the employment for them, taking forward the skillful quotient further. To GVP, I think Dr. Muchala is advocating so much on orphan drugs. I think any one of you are focusing on that. Am I clear to you, Krishna?
So, G. Prasad doesn't want to answer that. He is asking. I think, number one, there is no degree called biotechnology in most of the world. I think we always like sexy Bollywood movies. So we like to coin words. See, biotechnology is a tool. It's not a science. Tool to understand the science, you need a tool. So the biotechnology tools can be used in every science. But unfortunately, we made it as a science. And we created too many graduates. And I think the market is already, corrections have come already. Market correction have come already. And we find it difficult, the biotechnology student, in contrast to the pharmacy student or microbiology, pure microbiology student, does better than biotechnology student. Yes, it's wrong with our college policies. But how do you rectify? It's difficult, but the corrections have come already. No students are going there for biotechnology degree. So that's taken care of.
GV, on the other question on are you looking at orphan drugs?
We are not looking at orphan drugs, but that's an avenue for getting into the market faster at a lower cost. And companies have done that. They've registered an orphan drug and then expanded indications. It could be a smart strategy, but in the TS that we focus on, they're not amenable to orphan drugs.
But that could be a way forward for some of the other
some of the
companies.
Companies are doing it already.
So in India, are there other companies which are looking into orphan drugs?
No, just one warning, the challenge with orphan drugs, then it's pricing.
It's very small.
Yeah, even though you spend
the market
less,
is so small.
The market is very small, and you cannot amortize the investment in a large population base. So just word of caution.
Yes.
We are doing an orphan status on a protein against Staph aureus, MRSA. Okay, it's resistant to all the antibiotics. So we see that Staph aureus segment is of orphan status, and working on the biotech molecule against that.
I mean,
so there are options, but
surprised that it could be orphan drug because
it is
the definition of orphan drugs is a very small population. But MRSA is so widespread in India.
But there is no antibiotics are available, so it's considered as orphan.
Maybe a priority drug, not an orphan drug. Yeah.
So there is a possibility of going through that, but the strategies or the business model are not very viable.
So by definition, orphan drug means it's a very small set of population, and hence the pricing has to be very, very high to make it viable. And that's the point, Rogerio.
Which is where not many companies get onto that.
Well, there is a sweet spot where people are targeting.
We've taken more time than we were allotted, but this was a very, very fruitful discussion. I hope the audience has enjoyed that, and I'm sure the panelists will be available for more discussion post this. Thank you from my side, and it was really a learning curve for me to be interacting with a panelist of this stature. Thanks a lot to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.